I've been a full-time filmmaker for a decade now. It took me years to build a career that I loved and was proud of. But in year 8, everything fell apart. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me. But I'll start from the beginning. My name is Alex Ronsdorf. I'm a director, filmmaker, and sometimes photographer. I can't really tell the romantic story of my parents gifting me like a VHS cam when I was 8 at Christmas. I grew up in a big family, 5 kids, middle of nowhere, literally surrounded by fields, mountains and cows. I bought my first camera when I was 21. I thought my family needed like a big black camera for special occasions. I thought you needed like a black camera with like a lens on it and stuff. So I bought the T3i. And at the same time, I was looking into why movies I was seeing at the cinema were looking like they were looking, and my iPhone 5 was not producing the same results. And dozens of YouTube videos later, I was hooked. So I started to do projects for other people and basically said yes to everything that involved me and a camera. I even founded a production company with a friend, and I finished school and I became a full-time filmmaker straight after. Like, we literally flew out to Norway for a project like the day after our final exams. It felt like the first time I was taking life into my own hands, and that was exciting. The projects got bigger, budgets got bigger, the cameras got bigger, and the films looked better and better and better. I had no real idea what I was doing at the time, but that did not really matter. I was just fully absorbed in this new world of full-time filmmaking. And yeah, we just did project after project after project, not doing much else really. What I was not aware of at that time was that my career as a filmmaker was slowly seeping into my identity. Day by day, my work and we became one. And as the career was evolving, I felt I could conquer the world. I had quite the ego at the time, to be honest. And what that also meant was that I had to say yes to every opportunity. Like, because the next project might be your breakthrough, you know, you're just hungry. That's one perspective. Reality is I was just not able to say no. And that just means non-stop work, even through sickness. Around that time, I also decided to apply for film school, and I thought I would get in easily, which I didn't. I got declined, and my ego bubble just popped. It felt like I realized how little I was, you know, like how many other great filmmakers were out there, how much there was still to learn, like how far off I was from where I actually wanted to go. And that felt intimidating and frustrating at the same time. I wasn't sleeping well, and my eyes started twitching, and they would not stop. On the private side of things, I was going through shakeups as well. So in the end of 2018, I made the decision that felt super counterintuitive to a career that was going well and building up, to pull the brakes. Like, I quit the production company, flew to the other side of the world, and took like half a year off, not shooting a single project. On my way back, I spent like 10 days in New York City just by myself, and by a heavenly orchestrated coincidence, I had the opportunity to spend 2 days on set with Salomon Ligthelm. At that point, he really was a director I was looking up to for years already. Like, this was the last 2 days of my trip. Like, I booked this almost a year earlier. Being on set with him, experiencing his craft and strive for excellence really gave me like a new vision for what I wanted to do. And I came home more certain than ever that like filmmaking and directing was the path I wanted to go down on. So back home, I picked up where I left, and I felt different, at least for a long while. Like, I knew I wanted to push towards directing, but like, how do you even do that? At that time, it was not like a giant thing on Instagram, like you would see videos on it and stuff. That's why I started to push beyond my network. I tried to meet as much new people as I could. I drove hours just for a coffee date, started to shoot my own passion projects, shot them on film, because for me that was like the holy grail at that time. And things were like starting to go into the right direction. As I mentioned, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in South Germany, but I wanted to take this whole filmmaking thing seriously. And for me, that meant having to make a decision. So in 2021, I packed my bags and moved to Berlin. It's basically where the heart of the creative industry sits in this country. It's where all the big production companies are. And for me, it felt like if I wanted to make something of myself, this is where I had to be. I mean, it's also where my girlfriend lived at that time. So when I came, I reached out to all the production companies I could find. Big ones, small ones, and everything in between. And I was ghosted by like 99% of them. Like, it sucked, to be honest. But it also showed me that if I want to play this game, I had to shift up a couple of gears. And I just started to shoot as much as possible and try to seize as many project opportunities I had at hand. And I believe that if there's no one around giving you an opportunity, you just have to create them yourself. I shot music videos, short documentaries, spec commercials, and I live by this rule that every project needed to have something the one before did not have, like a technique or a style or something. For example, I wanted to shoot 35 with a Steadicam so badly. That's why we asked around for a Steadicam op and made it happen. And that season ended in the summer of 2022 when my girlfriend and I got married. After that, with my new portfolio, I reached out to a smaller selection of production companies again, and this time I was not ghosted, and that landed me some of my first directing gigs. First for WhatsApp, then for Adidas, then for Hugendubel, which is like a German bookstore. We shot that in Bucharest, in Romania, and things really started to move. It was exactly what I was working towards. Every project got bigger and better, and I closed out 2023 with my biggest commercial at that point, which was like a supermarket commercial. That was the first year that I hit 6 figures. And if you're a freelancer, you know that that's like a huge milestone. And I had big plans in mind for 2024. I wanted bigger brands, I wanted more passion projects. I wanted to break through the 500K budget mark for a project. And so on and so on and so on. Like I was ready for the next year. I was locked in. So 2024 came, and it started with absolute silence. Like silence for weeks. And weeks turned into months. My life felt like if all the wind had gone out of my sails. Like, not bigger projects, no projects. And then my wife got pregnant. And it was in that moment I realized that the work that I was doing and the person I was were one again. The highs of the years before, the ambition, the persona, it all came crushing down. I felt so empty, like I had nothing to offer. I was in crisis, and I knew something had to change, not just in my career, but in myself. Time passed, and our financial situation did not change for over a year. Regardless, in 2025, our beautiful daughter was born, and that was the most glorious thing I have ever experienced in my life. Like, the worst time in my career coincided with the beginning of the best chapter of my life. And I had to face that I am not first a director or a filmmaker, not even a creative. Before that, I'm a husband, a father, a friend, and I love my job. I'd make films if money was no object, but I am not my job. And it took me almost a decade to learn that. Now, in 2026, I'm still working as a director, more than before. I actually just finished my biggest project I've done so far, and I am happy about it. I still struggle with tying my worth to my work, and I will struggle with that in the future, I guess. I think you fight the same battles over and over, just at different maturity stages. But I know deep down I'm not working towards something, but I am working out of something. It's all a gift. There's this tree outside my parents' house. It's my favorite tree. I've known it my whole life. And trees take a long time to grow. And so do humans. And so does becoming a person that can thrive and work without being destroyed by it. Yep. That was my first YouTube video. Many to come. And if you liked it, stick around.